And now, aviation weather around Alaska.
Friday morning's flying weather graphic showing areas of IFR here in the interior. IFR mostly off the Arctic coast up there. Main area IFR, Yukon-Kuskokwim Delta, on out covering the Bering Sea and the Aleutians. Otherwise, the southeast coast, not bad at all. Some marginal VFR out along the coastline there. And for the afternoon, VFR for the Panhandle. Marginal VFR here for the North Gulf Coast, Prince William Sound. An area marginal VFR along the front that's more or less stalled out here in the central interior. To the north, VFR all the way up to the Arctic coast. To the south, mostly VFR from Cook Inlet westward out to the coastline. Lower conditions here for the North Gulf Coast. And for the Bering Sea, not much change. IFR pulls off the coast and continues from St. Lawrence Island down to the Aleutians. And for the morning Saturday, not much change out here. IFR a little farther into the Bering Strait. Otherwise, down to near Nunivak Island, marginal VFR, Yukon-Kuskokwim Delta coast, Seward Peninsula area, and just some leftover lower conditions here, mostly over the mountainous terrain, like the Alaska Range White Mountains and the Mid-Yukon River area. And IFR now sliding up into Prince William Sound, down around Kodiak Island, and staying off the southeast coast, though, for the afternoon. Really virtually no change out here over the Bering Sea to the Aleutians, with the IFR now all the way up into the east side of Kodiak Island. Higher pressure building in more or less from the east-southeast, keeping the storminess out here to the west and keeping the IFR off the coast there, and better conditions with a higher pressure for Saturday afternoon. Mostly VFR overall in the interior, some lingering marginal VFR for the western central Brooks Range here on the southern slopes. And for the North Gulf Coast, Panhandle, good VFR. Anaktuvik tomorrow, IFR improving to VFR in the afternoon. Adigan, same forecast, improving conditions throughout the day. And Lake Clark and Merrill starting out marginal, becoming VFR. Rainy, starting out IFR, becoming marginal VFR. That same forecast goes for windy as well. And for Isabel, same thing, IFR to marginal VFR. So all the Alaska Range passes showing some improvement. Even Mentasta starting out marginal, becoming VFR. Tanita, marginal early on, becoming VFR. And Portage, marginal VFR, likely at times throughout the day. And Chilkoot and White, VFR. Freezing levels here, pretty chilly air up over the north slope to the Arctic coast, 2,000 feet down to Kotzebue, and 6,000 feet in the central interior areas, and then slowly warming up as you head south, looking about 10,000 feet over the Panhandle, 14,000 feet here over the western Bering Sea, and from about Atka westward. Icing along that front, stalled out in the central interior here. Could be some considerable moderate rime icing there from about Eagle into the Tanana Valley, possibly down toward the Talkeetnas, but generally right through this area into the northern Kuskokwim Valley, Yukon Delta area. Otherwise, moving on to the jet stream here. Got pretty good winds at 33,000 feet here in the central interior, 90 to 100 knots out of the west-northwest with a higher pressure down to the south, this low up over the eastern Arctic coast, and in between kind of puts a squeeze on the atmosphere there, giving those higher winds. 9,000 feet, lighter winds, lower elevation, west 35 to 45 knots in the central interior areas, and then just south of the Aleutians here, northwest or across the southwest Bering Sea and the Aleutians, 40 to 50 knot winds out of the west-northwest. And for 3,000 feet, southwest 40 knot winds right up to the southwest coast. And then west-southwest of about 25 knots here in the central interior, maybe as high as 30 knots along the central Arctic coast. Otherwise, light and variable here, southern Alaska, the Gulf, into western Canada. And for turbulence, look for some considerable moderate turbulence up here from the Yukon Flats area down into the White Mountains, with wind advisory is out, and out over the central and western Aleutians.